I want chocolate cake. Go buy it for me. My mother-in-law, Grace, shouted from her bed. She wasn't feeling well, but still expected me to run out and get her a cake right away. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Can you please be quiet? You can't get your own cake. Grace, I don't have to do everything for you. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28. I met my husband, David, through a friend, and we got married after 3 years of dating. We don't have any kids yet, but we're enjoying our time together. David's family owns a small factory with around 30 employees, and it's doing pretty well. David's late father started the business, and it grew thanks to everyone's hard work. Now, David's sister, Sophia, is the CEO. She's smart and friendly, and under her leadership, the business has improved. Sophia's great at communicating, just like Mom, David said once. When I first met her, Sophia greeted me warmly, saying, "I'm so happy to have a sister-in-law." She was all smiles, and I was glad to feel like I'd gained a sister. So, you might think I have a pretty good life, but there's one problem: my mother-in-law, Grace. The family home is right next to the factory, and since David's father passed, Grace retired and stays at home. She loves having coffee breaks at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., and she expects me to join her. "Sorry, Olivia, I'm busy. Can you get Mom's coffee?" David often asks, and it instantly puts me in a bad mood. When I bring her coffee, she'll say things like, "Oh, I was hoping to talk to Sophia, not you," and she'll look disappointed. Then she'll sigh and say, "Sit down, I have something to say." That's when the complaints start. She'll bring up that we've been married for 3 years with no kids, saying things like, "You're still childless." I try to explain that having kids isn't something you can control, but if I stay quiet, she just gets more annoyed. Why the gloomy face? I don't know why David chose someone like you. And with your parents, who knows how long you'll live? Sooner is better. My mother-in-law sighed as she said this, making me feel awful, especially because she mentioned my parents. There's a reason that hurt me so much. When David and I decided to get married, we went to meet his family, and my mother-in-law reacted like this. "What? You don't have parents?" She looked shocked. I explained that my mom passed away from cancer when I was 10, and my dad died of a heart attack when I was 20. My memories of my mom are faint, but my dad raised my brother and me alone. I regret that he passed before I could repay his kindness. Most people react with sympathy, saying, "That must have been hard," but not my mother-in-law. "So, you might not live long either." "Ah," she said, as if it were nothing. I was stunned by how rude and insensitive that was. My husband, David, told her off, but she still insisted it was something to worry about. Just as I started wondering if I should call off the wedding, Sophia, David's sister, spoke up. She slammed her hand on the table and quietly asked, "What are you talking about?" The room went silent. My mother-in-law tried to bring Sophia to her side, saying, "Right, Sophia, you agree with me, don't you?" But Sophia replied coldly, "David chose Olivia himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" This response shocked my mother-in-law, who adores her daughter. From then on, she stopped making snide remarks, at least when other people were around. But during our coffee breaks, when it was just us, she still looked disappointed whenever I brought her coffee instead of Sophia. David and I rented a place near his family home, so I only had to deal with her comments during those 10-minute coffee breaks. I was glad we didn't live together until a record-breaking hurricane that year changed everything. "Olivia, something terrible happened." David's panicked voice pulled me into the living room, where I saw a disaster. Our ceiling was leaking badly from the hurricane, and it wasn't just our room. The landlord told us that other rooms were damaged too, and repairs would take a while. We had to find temporary housing. Sophia suggested, "Why worry? Just stay with us. Your commute will be 30 seconds. She said it so cheerfully that I couldn't refuse. When we arrived at David's family home, his mother greeted him warmly. "Welcome home, David. The storm must have been tough, but I'm happy we're living together again." David mostly ignored her, looking annoyed. She turned to me, saying, "Oh, Olivia, you're here too. I didn't notice since you're so quiet." Try smiling more. Frustrated, David made a face, and I forced a smile, realizing we'd be here for a while. On our first night together, I decided to cook dinner as a way of saying thank you. I made bread, soup, and stew not fancy, but my mother-in-law and Sophia enjoyed it, and I felt relieved. But then, out of nowhere, my mother-in-law got up, went to the fridge, and started humming as she opened a container. She spooned a huge amount of whatever was in it onto her steak, surprising me. "Man, you're still eating that stuff?" my husband asked, looking disgusted. Sophia, my sister-in-law, rolled her eyes. "She won't stop, no matter how many times I tell her. I've given up," she said, then burst into laughter. At first, I couldn't tell what my mother-in-law had piled on her steak. When I looked closer, I realized it was jam. Sweet sauces on meat aren't unheard of, but jam on a seasoned steak seemed bizarre. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet. "Right, that's why," she explained with a satisfied smile. Watching her eat it actually gave me heartburn. I'm not a fan of sweet sauces on meat. Come on, Olivia, why don't you try it? It's delicious, my mother-in-law urged, not wanting to be rude. I forced a smile but politely declined. Apparently, that wasn't the reaction she wanted. "I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example." With that parting shot, she retreated to her room. I was left speechless, but my husband and sister-in-law quickly apologized. "Sorry, Mom's at it again with her nonsense," they said. "I learned that my mother-in-law has a serious sweet tooth and insists on having cake every afternoon during our 3 coffee breaks. Her health checkups come back normal each year, though, which is surprising given her love for sweets." I couldn't help but wonder, does Sophia buy the cake every day? Sophia admitted, "Yeah, she makes me go buy it. Says it's embarrassing for her to do it herself. Thanks to that, I've become friends with all the local cake shops." She laughed, but David didn't find it amusing. "Sophia, this isn't funny. Mom's getting older and needs to start taking care of herself. I shouldn't have left it all to you." "Well, I think you guys will have to pitch in more from now on," Sophia said with a smile. I braced myself for more interactions with my mother-in-law. Living with my in-laws did have one advantage, a shorter commute, which allowed me to help with chores before and after work. I tried to engage my mother-in-law in conversation, but she usually gave me the cold shoulder or outright ignored me. Yet she never missed a chance to complain about the kids during our coffee breaks. Since moving in, I've had more bad days than good, probably due to the stress. My husband noticed and offered to go to the doctor with me. "Let's move out and stay at a hotel temporarily," he suggested. He suggested that we stay at a hotel for a break, but I declined. It felt like a waste of money, and the nearest hotel was still a bit far. Then the worst news came. My husband had a business trip for a whole week. I was speechless, especially because my sister-in-law, Sophia, would be going too. This meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law. My husband offered to take me along, but I thought, it's just a week, I can't handle it. I wasn't feeling my best, but I figured I'd manage. Before leaving, Sophia sent me a funny mother-in-law survival guide, telling me that if I had any problems, I should just give her cake. She even listed all her favorite cakes and the local shops that sold them. For someone preparing for a challenging week, this was super helpful. In a week, our home renovations would be done, and we'd move back. I thought I could handle it, but my confidence faded the first night. When I came home from work, my mother-in-law was blocking the entrance. "You know why I'm angry, don't you?" she asked. I was confused. "No, I don't. I'm not a mind reader." Losing her patience, she snapped, "You missed both the 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. coffee breaks today." Her words caught me off guard. With my husband and Sophia away and so much work to do, I had completely forgotten. I thought she'd understand since she used to work too, but she yelled, "The moment we're alone, you start this harassment, you wicked woman." I felt completely disconnected. Why was I being called wicked over coffee breaks? Suppressing my frustration, I calmly said, "I bought cake during my lunch break. It's in the office fridge. I'll bring it next time." Her face changed instantly. From angry to cheerful. Let's forget about today, but don't forget tomorrow, okay? She happily went back to her room. From then on, I called her the cake demon in my mind and made sure not to miss the coffee breaks. On the day my husband and Sophia were due back, I was so stressed that I felt nauseous, had a headache, and lost my appetite. I took the day off and went to the hospital, only to receive devastating news. The doctor told me I had cancer and might only have 6 months, maybe even less, to live. I couldn't stop crying. When I returned home, pale and shaken, I lay down on the bed. My mother-in-law barged in, screeching, "What are you doing skipping work? Sophia and David are working hard, and you're slacking off." I didn't have the energy to argue, so I whispered, "I'm not feeling well," and closed my eyes. She ignored this and kept complaining, even making cruel remarks. She continued, then suddenly asked about today's coffee break. Is she really this oblivious? I thought. I opened my eyes and, trying to stay calm, said, "Grace, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well enough to go shopping today. Could you please?" She cut me off, shouting, "I don't care. I want chocolate cake now. Go buy it. You're probably faking it." Her voice was louder than ever. My frustration finally exploded. "Shut up and listen to me. I have 1 month to live. Go buy your own damn cake, you idiot." My words seemed to stun her. She just stood there, wide-eyed. Then, from behind her, I heard, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" And, "Olivia, what do you mean 1 more month?" My husband and sister-in-law, both looking concerned, had come home early. Ignoring my stunned mother-in-law, my husband rushed to my side. I felt so relieved. I started crying. "I can't take it anymore. The doctor says it might be cancer, and I'm not well, but she keeps nagging me to buy cake. Enough is enough. Stop bothering me about kids. To just leave me alone." I poured out all my resentment through tears. My husband and sister-in-law looked at my mother-in-law with cold, disapproving stares. "Sending a sick person to buy cake? Are you serious?" Sophia, usually cheerful, had a hard, furious look on her face. "You've been making hurtful comments about kids. Well, you should know. The reason we don't have kids is because of me." My husband's voice was strong, even though his words carried pain. "About a year after we married, we sought a doctor because we were struggling to conceive. The tests showed that I was healthy, but my husband's results were low. He felt awful about it, always apologizing. I didn't want him to feel that way, so I avoided talking about kids. I wanted children, but being with him was enough for me, and I never considered leaving him. I had told his mother to protect him from her nagging." Hearing this, my mother-in-law looked completely deflated. Just then, my phone rang. It was the hospital. "Hello. Yes, my husband is here now, right? Understood." The doctor sounded urgent, asking us to come in right away. As I hung up, anxiety washed over me. Am I really that sick? I started to cry, but my husband held me tightly, his own eyes filled with tears. Together, we rushed to the hospital. As we left, I saw Sophie giving my mother-in-law a stern lecture. When we got to the hospital, the doctor and even the hospital director were waiting to apologize deeply. It turned out there had been a terrible mistake. They had mixed up my medical records with those of another patient with the same name and birth date. It was a relief I could hardly believe. The hospital later reviewed its procedures, and the story even made the local news. After all that, we were sent to another hospital to investigate my actual symptoms. When we got back to my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law looked completely deflated after Sophia's scolding. Later, Sophia told me she had been terrified that her newlywed brother might lose his wife and end up heartbroken. It might have been a way of showing love, but it was exhausting for everyone. Seeing our tear-streaked faces, my mother-in-law broke down too. "Did I really do something that bad?" she sobbed. Then, Sophia looked at me with concern. "What about you, Olivia?" With a smile, I said, "I'm pregnant." Tears of joy filled my eyes. My husband burst into happy tears, too, and we went to the maternity hospital as recommended. They confirmed his heartbeat was strong and steady. We cried together with joy, and Sophia was overjoyed as well. In the weeks that followed, Sophia got engaged to her longtime boyfriend and moved to another state with him. My husband, who had just been promoted to CEO, had his hands full with work, which was the reason for his recent business trip. He was able to come home early because the meeting ended ahead of schedule. Despite all the stress and challenges, our lives had a beautiful new beginning to look forward to. It turned out that my mother-in-law hadn't known anything about Sophia's plans to get married, quit her job, and move to another state. She was shocked when Sophia said, "Yes, I told you. Remember?" "Well, it's already decided." My mother-in-law looked stunned, and we all couldn't help but laugh. When we got home, we found that our leaky roof had been fixed, and our room looked brand new. We cheered, delighted with the fresh start. Things were still awkward with my mother-in-law, though. My husband was even more upset than I was and said he never wanted to see her again. But over time, my mother-in-law started visiting occasionally, bringing small snacks like biscuits instead of the bake cakes and sugary jams she used to insist on. She seemed to be more health-conscious now that she knew a grandchild was coming. The employees who had known her since my father-in-law was CEO were happy to see her, which made me realize she wasn't a bad person at heart. Our conversations grew more comfortable, and she stopped complaining. When our daughter, Emma, was born, my mother-in-law transformed. She began doing thoughtful things, like bringing diapers and side dishes for dinner, saying, "Feel free to eat. You're always working so hard." She even left food at the door without ringing the bell, knowing I might be resting. I appreciated these small gestures. What truly moved me was when Emma was born. My mother-in-law took my hand, teary-eyed, and said, "Thank you, Olivia. Really thank you." Seeing her sincerity, I felt I could get along with this new version of her. Sophia also seems to be doing well and recently announced her own pregnancy. It feels like it won't be long before we're all gathering happily at the in-laws' house for a family meal.